So he's got the rest of his life to talk.
Yeah. Hi everybody, this is National Domestic Radio NDR, and we're here today for our July episode. I am Thaty.
And I am Devon.
Welcome. So today we're going to talk about one topic that I really love, and it's actually one of the topics that I actually have a degree on, which is language acquisition. We're going to talk a little bit about how fostering, milestones, red flags, when you should worry about, and all that fun stuff. So I think a few things that parents usually worry is like, when is my kids going to start talking? When should I worry about? And it's actually something very interesting, because if you ask doctors, it's really...
I think you get a wide range of answers from doctors, because I think the difference is, like, your pediatrician is great, and they're great at being a pediatrician.
Yes.
But just like many other facets, your pediatrician is not a nutritionist, they're not a car seat specialist, and they're not a language specialist. And, you know, I found it interesting. My current charge went to the doctor for his 1-year appointment, and the doctor said, well, if he's not saying any words by 15 months, why don't you bring him in? And, you know, at pediatrician's appointments, at least here in Massachusetts, they have a social worker as well. And the social worker turned to his parents and said, don't worry, there's no rush. He's showing all the signs of readiness, and if he hasn't gotten there yet, he's only 12 months old. He's got plenty of time. So he's got the rest of his life to talk.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that doctors and even the specialists didn't understand, because I worked with one child that was like, when he went to the doctor, they went for early intervention. They came in early intervention, and like, I think they did it a month or two, and after the person, you know, the specialist, yeah, he has no problem at all. And languages in it, you know, is everything from the babbling and baba, or make-up speech, make-up talk when baby's doing that. I just saw like an adorable video. I will put the video after on our channel. Like a little girl, she was just imitating the mom on the phone, like ah ba ba ah, and even making like the, you know, facial expressions and gestures of like, oh my god, like, and that is perfect. That's count as talking. Like, that's them developing their language, and everything comes also from their interaction they're having with their caregivers and parents. So it's imitation first of all that you're gonna get. So even though if you don't get like a full word, that's how they're developing. They're gonna make up their own talk first, and then months from now it takes long.
Yeah, and I think the important part is that I think the social aspect of talking is coming before the actual speech part of talking. Because they understand, like when we're speaking to them or when we say their name, and they understand, like, with the tone of the conversation, what the context is. I think much better than most people give them credit for.
Oh, absolutely. Since they're really young, and they're, you know, with language, there's always two things: receptive and expressive. So, you know, with kids and even adults, we usually have a greater vocabulary that we use in our everyday life, so we understand much more than we actually know, what we actually talk, or the words we use, right? So with kids, it's the same thing. By 12 months, like, if they're recognizing their own name, if they're responding to just, you know, say bye-bye, you know, or just wave, like even commands like that, you know, your child's on track, and there's nothing.
Yeah, don't touch that.
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, and definitely, you know, I do want to talk about the second language, which there are some differences, and usually they do take longer to speak, but that's normal. That's just the processing the brain. Doesn't mean they're delayed or anything. And believe me, when they talk, they're going to be talking, and it's what we call the silent period. Again, it's that time that they take longer to process what's coming in. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not understanding. They don't know. They're just, you know, it's the brain, the lights, the switch they're going to have there, like, you know, we call it code switch after, you know, later on. But it's just the processing that takes a little longer. It doesn't mean that it's a speech delay.
And when there's more than one language being spoken in the house, it makes sense, because that child is taking in easily twice as much language information as a child in a family that's just speaking one language. So it makes sense. It takes them a little bit longer to, like, absorb all of that. So what would you say are some of the milestones that you can expect to see from a child?
So the first year is definitely the cooing, you know, just making up the sounds that you don't understand.
Ba, 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 ba.
Yep. I would say like the 6th month is when you go like to the double syllables, like dada, mama. But again, there is a range, and you shouldn't be like, oh my god, my child is not saying dada at 6 months. But that's usually when you start seeing. Later to 9 months is when they attune more of the tone, so they might have some variation in trying to really imitate the language. Like in 1 year old, they're really trying to, repeat or still not full words, but they'll be trying to imitate whatever you're talking, also with intonation and all that. Yeah. And one of the things they say also is when they're, let's say, 1 to 2 years old, even though if they have, some words, they may use the same word for different things, which is also normal. It doesn't mean that they're not getting it or they learned something wrong. They just, I love like watching the children when they're learning, like they get so proud of being using words that, oh, this finally sounds what my grown-up is saying. So they use that a lot, and it's pretty common. It's not because they don't know that this means this and this is not. It's just they're so proud and they want to use the new words, and they're just learning the new vocabulary.
So next we're going to talk about some of the red flags to look out for as far as language and rate of acquisition and things like that.
Yeah. So definitely, if it's like 9 to 12 months and no babbling at all, that is definitely something you should worry about. And again, it's that combined with also the child not recognizing their name, not responding to mama or some very simple cues. That's something that you should raise a concern about. They say no first words before 15, like by 15 months, but again, we're not expecting them to say father or it's really like the baby word, if it's dada or mama
baba for bottle or pinky or
so it's like a sound that you can actually recognize and know what they're trying to say, and then usually we say like 18 months is when they have the more consistent and they know what they're using with, but really you don't have to wait until like 2 years old. And I know that sounds insane because especially for me with kids that are talking in full sentences at 2 years old, but that's actually
perfectly normal.
It's normal, but that's actually where the specialists, where you can go to early intervention, they're going to start working with. And remember, it's all fostered by you and the caregivers around. So usually, and I've worked with a speech therapist before. Sometimes, the problem is not really the child; it's really about the interaction and the quality of interaction they've had in the past. So there's also that part that we need to be aware of. Like, are we talking enough? Are we interacting, with the child enough that they're getting that, that speech, that model and all that? And that's a key part that a lot of parents don't see it.
So what are some tools you think that parents or caregivers could use to sort of encourage that interaction, to encourage the speech?
I've always used a lot of how do you call the nursery rhymes? So there is the theory behind like rhyming and chanting. So I use a lot of that. So that's why nursery rhymes out there's just the lullabies or whatever, but no, they actually foster literacy, language and literacy. So that's why I do a lot of finger play also with movement and sounds. It's almost like chanting.
I think like toddler uses.
Yes, and I remember even with Frog, I remember when I was saying about like the word wait, and I remember the elevator, I would just do like a little this like wait, and 2 days later she was saying wait. So it's when you combine the tone, the chanting with movement, it's also something great for kids so they get it sooner. So interacting and play, and remember it's please TV, no, it doesn't count. If you put language
interacting.
It's not interaction, and research has shown now that the child, what they learn from is from the facial expressions. So it's really like watching your, how your mouth is working. Again, you need to give that the call and response. So you give time, even if they're not answering. You pause and then you can say something
Give
back.
them the opportunity.
Yeah. And with babies, when they're changing the diaper, they go gaga gaga. It's like, oh, that's right. Yes, I know it's code. I'm sorry. And you'll make up the conversation.
Yeah. I think a couple of things that I use that I feel are definitely have a connection is a lot of mimicking. Me mimicking them until they start mimicking me, and then it kind of turns into a fun game where. Baby's saying goo goo goo, and I copy it back. and talk with them. And going along with talking with them is a lot of singing and a lot of reading to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Because again, I think especially when you're reading a story, even if it's a short story on a board book, they're going to pick up on that inflection and tone in your voice.
Yes.
Depending on the situation that you're reading. And I think that definitely helps the social aspect of language, because when you're reading, you're put in different situations than you would be in everyday life.
Yeah. And it hurts me so much when I get parents like, oh, he's 4 months, but he doesn't like it, he's not interested. And I'm like, oh, please don't stop it.
That's what they're most interested in.
Yes, kids are, the thing is, you have to show them how to be interested, right? They don't know, it's something new. And of course, you're not going to expect them, they're there for like 3 hours reading a book. But you need to show the interest. And I always
do it every day.
Exactly. And I tell parents, you're going to be interested if you're interested. It's like, oh my God, I have a book, let's read it and be happy and talk about it. So like, again, it comes from the parents and you have to be interested. Believe me, they are going to be interested, in reading a book. One thing that I also stress a lot is just not the baby talk. That doesn't do much for your baby. So you can actually talk to them perfectly fine. It's okay every now and then, like, oh my gosh, you're so cute, and but not having to do just
high pitch it
and missing, I don't know how, like in Portuguese we've just missed some letters or the sounds are different. It was just
more cutesy.
Yeah, and there's no need for that. They
they understand your voice.
They do. And again, that fosters like just language development even more.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and if you have any comments or suggestions for other episodes, leave them down below, and we will see you next time.
And if you have more questions about language acquisition, I'll be more than happy to answer more questions. So, see you next time.